So let's talk about some of your wins, like most recently. So you've been like really pursuing all of this music, right? And going for it for like what? Not even a year.
Yeah.
Like since May?
I would say
2020?
2019 was like the catalyst. Okay. So we'll say like almost 2 years in May.
Okay.
Which is crazy saying that out loud because it feels like it's been so long.
Because you've been diligent, consistent. Which is one of my biggest tips. People always say, how should I build my brand? And I'm like, well, how you should build your brand. Number one thing is consistency.
Yeah.
Like your stuff can be mediocre, but if you're consistent, you'll do better than someone with amazing art.
Correct.
That doesn't do it consistently.
Correct.
So
yeah, I was listening to a podcast with Ed Sheeran, and because George Ezra, I don't know if you know George Ezra, he's like the he's that guy. But he has a podcast, and he had Ed Sheeran on for one of the podcasts, and Ed Sheeran was talking about how talent can literally only bring you so far, and it's the artist who is mediocre and is willing to put in the work who's going to go farther than the guy who's like talented and is like gassing himself up like, oh yeah, I can like do this John Mayer riff better than John Mayer can. It's like, all right,
that's great.
But you're just a cover artist. This guy who's like mediocre Jim is out here like actually writing songs and like going to the Grammys, and you're still here on your couch talking about your John Mayer riff. You know what I mean?
Well, and so, I know too many people. You know, that's where the underdog mentality, which sometimes stems from like low key trauma, like moments in your childhood where people told you weren't good enough. It really does fuel you to go for it, or it could totally break you. You have to decide, right? Like, because I have the same mentality. I had a ton of people growing up that were just like, yeah, we don't see it, or like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm trying to, okay.
Yeah, I got bullied in school.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you know, like firsthand. Yeah. I got called names. I remember this one. I don't know why we're talking about this, but this one kid called me a gorilla. I don't even know. He could not explain why in middle school. And I was just kind of like, but it really hurt me. You know what I mean? So that underdog complex started up. And then sports came, right? And I wasn't really like super, super artsy. I was, but not like in an influential way yet. And I remember not getting chosen like so many times, or told
or
like
being picked last.
Yeah, or being told I had to change something. I remember one time I got kicked off the basketball team because the legit coach said, well, are you more of an artist or more of a basketball player? Yeah. I was like, dog, this is high school. Like, I don't know what it matters. Like, I'm playing and I'm doing a good job. And so just different things like that. Like, so I get it. So yeah, tell us more about that. You're talking about Ed Sheeran, this podcast, about just being consistent. Like, what has it brought you? I want to hear some wins, and I want to hear some losses too.
Yeah. Loss, I had to get over ego and pride stuff. Okay. I had to learn how to be okay with being told no.
In what sense? Tell us more.
There's this website called Submit Hub where
Submit Hub? Hello.
I actually don't recommend it. But basically this website is really neat if you do well on it. I haven't had luck with it because it's very competitive, but it's basically a website where you can submit your singles, EPs, albums, whatever, to total strangers, and they will review your music. And if they like it, you'll get put on these really popular playlists, get gajillions of streams and all this stuff on like Spotify. And then if not, either you'll get ghosted multiple times, or they'll be very, very harsh with their reviews.
So you've had the latter?
Harsh, and I should say too, like brutally honest. Like constructive criticism from someone who doesn't know how to give constructive criticism.
Like someone who has no compassion, almost feels like.
Yeah.
Very, very little compassion.
Yeah. So I've had to learn how to be okay with rejection. Not be okay, but face rejection, I should say.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're being honest with yourself too, because you're like brutally honest. And some artists might be like, yeah, they're tripping, like, and not face that. Yeah. So wait, what happened when you got like some of this feedback back and you're like, they're brutally honest? Did you change it, or did you
I normally would get ghosted, or like no response, or a random stranger would be like, yeah, I just don't like you. Whoa. like I don't know who you are. Wow. I've never met you. But when with that though, in my songwriting, I'm like at that point now where I wasn't before, where I'm like, okay, if I don't like this song, I can just write 5 more. Like, it's going to be okay.
That is the best method. Like, I was talking to a really, really good friend who wants to start a clothing line, and they're trying to figure out their designs. And I'm like, just put one out.
Yeah.
And they're like, but it has to mean a lot. I'm like, you feel that way now because you're just getting started, but on your like 391st design, you're still going to prize every design, but it's just a different ball game. Like if one sucks or you messed up on one, there's like 5 more to be created, 100 more.
Yes. Yeah. And also too, like just getting that mindset of Amber, not everyone's going to see the blood and the sweat and the tears that goes into making a song, making content. They're just going to see the wrapped finished present, and they're going to critique that. They're not critiquing you deciding if you should talk about this guy that you still have a crush on from high school. They're not gonna. They're just. They're not gonna even know. Is. I mean, well, obviously, if I release that song, then yeah, they're gonna know that
for
it's
sure.
About, you know, but like,
yeah, that's real.
Yeah, just taking that pressure off myself. Another loss, having to understand that people are fickle.
Oh my gosh, yeah, especially with the internet.
Yeah. People are very fickle. Like just as much as they are opinionated, so people are always going to be coming in and out in the sense of like I'm always going to be gaining followers just as much as I'm going to be losing followers, and vice versa, and having to be okay with the fact that it's not a me thing. Like I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
No, you're not. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing to realize because I don't know what it is in each of us. Like, I think most of us can really get into this thing if we don't ever address it. Everyone should like what I'm doing. Like, why don't you like what I'm doing? And the minute you realize that, like, everyone has their own flavor, like, down to who they date, to the foods they eat, to the music they listen to, you start getting offended. Like, when someone doesn't ask you out on a date and you had a crush on them, you're like, I'm just not their cup of tea. They like, first of all, you're rude and heartless. No, I'm just kidding. That's
tasteless.
How we can be, though. Yeah, total butthead. Like, you know what I mean? We go down these paths and these spirals, but the reality is like, dude just doesn't like me because I don't have red hair. Like, nothing doesn't make me ugly. I'm just not his cup of tea. And this person doesn't like your song because they like country music.
Yeah.
And then you don't make country
music. I see it all the time on Facebook, especially from our classmates.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to call them out. I'm not going to call out their actual names, but I'll call them out. The ones that know who they're doing it. Yeah.
Do it. And then what do they say?
And I know they mean well, but it's like, just think about the fact
kind
that,
of stuff?
Think about, I saw somebody, I'm a big Niall Horan fan, right, from One Direction. And he was talking about how it's like interesting how brave and bold we get once we're on the internet behind a keyboard.
It's called keyboard courage.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, would you go up to someone on the street and say that exact thing to their face? No, you wouldn't. You'd be a little coward.
Yeah.
So stop it.
Yeah, stop with your keyboard courage.
And if you can do better, then do it. But like, I mean, yes, be constructive with the criticism, but at the same time, like,
that's why I support you so much.
Does everything need to be said?
Yeah, it doesn't.
No.
And here's the difference between people who have keyboard courage and people, I was going to say like me, which sounds so pompous, I support you. Oh gosh, wow. But, the keyboard courage ones and the people that will support you are the people that are supporting you are probably on the ledge too, putting themselves out there, jumping into the mix. And the ones with the keyboard courage probably want to do it, but don't have the courage.
Yeah.
But they have keyboard courage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. Because when you start doing it, it's just, how hard it can be. You stop with all your comments and stuff because it's, how hurtful it is.
Yeah.
Perspective is different.
Yeah.